Hey Yoga Warriors, today we're breaking down tips and tricks to get into handstand. Now I know a lot of you have asked me ways to prep getting into handstand and also some how-tos when you're working on actual handstand approaches. So I'm going to break down a couple postures for you to work on, opening up hamstrings, which is key for handstanding, also building the strength and the awareness in core, your legs for inverting upside down. So to start, at the front of your mat, you have feet about inner hip distance. What is handstanding? It's pretty much when you're standing, Tadasana, except you're flipped upside down. So when you're standing, notice what's actively engaged. Your core, right, in a good posture position. You have shoulders stacked over the hips, arms are pretty level, and then you have activity through the legs. Same thing, you're going to extend the arms up overhead now, and then as you rise up to the balls of your feet, start to activate the core, engage the legs, and engage the glutes. And begin to rise all the way up, balls of the feet, lifting up, and find a steady focus. Everything you're going to do when you're upside down in your handstand. For 3, 2, and 1. Lower all the way down. Exhale. So that's a good one for activating everything in the body. Another great one, plank position. Why? Your body is pretty much in a plank when you're also upside down. So finding a plank, how you start to activate the core, and you're finding level, shoulders, hips, active legs. So we can hold plank for a couple minutes, but you get the point of that. That's another good prep. For opening up into hamstrings, one of my favorites, working from pyramid pose. Option of using a block, of course, if you're working with a bit tighter hamstrings, and as you extend long through your right leg, you're working right hip back, and the spine extends as well. Variation A, you're using the block. Variation B, you're forward folding, keeping a long spine. Work with that for a few breaths, maybe a minute or so. The next one, similar in the same family, but we'll call this the brother posture, will be coming into standing split. Standing split, similar dynamics. Important to know that the hips aren't open. The hips are squared off, and you're extending back through this back leg. So for me, it's my left leg. Long spine, inhale, and then you start to work, exhale. Notice as the chest drops, the left leg starts to lift. You might then, over time, begin to take the hands down towards the mat, relax the neck. And another variation can be grabbing the back of your calf, one or both legs. And as you start to extend up, the chest drops. Those are two great hamstring openers, so both pyramid, standing split. You're working the activity of the core, the legs in our standing inversion, right? And also plank posture. For more core strengthening postures as well, there's another video out there you can check on YouTube and also on my website for those. But you can also work any other variations of plank as well. Let's work into tips for handstanding. So handstanding is pretty much your downward facing dog, but we take a little bit shorter of a stance, and we're stacking the hips over the shoulders, and we start to find a position where we're stable in the air on our hands instead of the feet. So what is that like? If you're standing, notice your shoulders are right over your hips. If you're inverted, it's going to be your hips right over your shoulders. So when you're upside down, you're also working for that same balance as well. You're using less momentum and more control coming into the posture. Something I like to work with as well is coming out of the posture. It's important, it's just as important how you come out of the posture as to how you come into the posture. And both of those more important than when you're actually in a handstand. So we start to work with split legs, bringing the legs together. What does all that mean? I'm going to show it to you. When you're coming into handstand, important to have a soft bend in this first knee that's forward. We work with the palms down, a little bit wider than shoulders. This back leg always stays extended, just like we did in our standing split. Now as you start to lift up, you can start shifting forward, the shoulders move past the wrists, this leg extends. Okay, two really important tips there. This back leg always stays extended. Tip number 2, shoulders move past the wrists. From there, you can start to work on little kicks if you're shifting forward. Notice it's more about control than it is kicking all the way up. So you notice as I start to shift more forward and the hips start to stack over the shoulders, there's a little more float. And that's the direction we want to keep working towards, is finding more float and less kick, okay? So you start to gain control over the movement that you're putting your body into, which is all of the Live Free philosophy. You're moving slow and controlled movement through all of your practice. Let's tie this together now. So as we start to shift forward, back leg is extended. As soon as we kick up, that bent knee extends as well. So we're working with 2 straight legs. And we start to work from split legs to then bring the legs together over time. So let's work in that standpoint. I'm going to give myself a little more room. And we find the breath. You're inhaling, shifting forward. To come out, do little cartwheels. Let's try again. What are the biggest fears of coming into handstands? Falling, right? Like all things that we want to try that we're fearful of, it's falling, it's failing, it's falling flat on our face, it's not succeeding, it's getting hurt. Whether it's talking about love, relationships, a new job, a transition in life, or you're talking about flipping upside down on your hands, but you haven't done since you were maybe 4. It's all fear. How do we overcome those fears and how do we work past them? In handstanding, the best tip I can give you is learning how to fall. When you're working on falling out of a handstand, think of cartwheels. You're turning to the side and you're cartwheeling out of it. So let's have fun with this, right? When you were a back kid and you were playing in the field, the grassy field, and you're doing handstands for hours on end, you're doing cartwheels and just tumbling to the side. Kind of the same thing here. So as you lift on up, you're learning to tumble to the side. And you fall out to the side just like you would for a cartwheel. Once you take that fear out of you about falling and you know how to fall, it's a little less scary. Now, how does that also apply to life? I think we can think of a lot of ways. When you know exit strategies, when you know of different nets to appear in things that look scary, you're afraid of, fearful of. Let's take an example. You want to change jobs, yet is this job going to work out? Am I going to be happy with it? I like to think of in life, what's the worst case scenario? Maybe that sounds horrible, but it's true. What's the worst case scenario that happens if you don't like a job that you switch to? You could probably find another one. You switch back. Who knows? But when you start to work in different alternatives of what's the worst that can happen, you take that fear out, and then maybe you're more apt to try. Same thing in handstands. When we know how to fall out of them, then we're a little more apt to try them, or at least have fun with the process of them. So I hope that was helpful. Tips on handstanding, strengthening postures with handstanding, and a little life coaching in there too. For more yoga, wellness, life coaching, and travel tips, head to livefreewarrior.com.